Hi there. This is the second video on a talk I'm giving for free on fictional characters and dreams and how they show up for us and what they have to say. So the context is the novel that I just independently published called Soul Mapper. And the first name of the protagonist is Lucas. And I was saying in the last video that these imaginary characters have a certain reality to them, a certain autonomy. They're more than just made up. And so in the case of Lucas, he was showing up in my dreams before I even knew I was going to write a novel. I've written a number of stories which are available for free at my website, chalkwist.com, if you go into the /fiction part or the work tab, either one. And that collection is called Tales of Terrania Rising. So he pops in there a little bit, a couple of cameos. And in any case, while I was working on pulling those stories together, he was showing up in my dreams, and I didn't know who he was at the time. And when we do dream work, which I've been doing for a number of years, there's different ways of thinking about the characters and symbols. The common way is to say they're part of us, which in one sense they are. So there was this kind of outlaw, around the edges guy who was showing up, and I was thinking, well, this must be a shadow figure. This must be the part of me that rebels against things like academic discipline. I'm writing a second dissertation right now. No wonder he's around. But he was pretty persistent, and at one point, somebody I knew who was an artist, wanted to do kind of a stylized painting of me, and she painted him instead. So that was when I began to suspect, there's something to this figure. He's kind of real, kind of persistent. So I started engaging in active imagination with him. So I'm going to explain what that is so you can do it. You might have been doing a version of it already. But when you think about daydreaming, it's just kind of this uncontrolled, fun thing to do, especially when we're bored, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but if you go deeply enough into your daydreams, at some point, the characters you're engaging with become so real, they begin to say things you don't anticipate, or do things that you don't anticipate. And Jung turned this into an actual technique. So when he was getting to know himself better in his 40s, early 40s, he started making space. So he'd get into this kind of reverie state, relaxed. And I don't know if he closed his eyes or not, but that helps me do it. And just kind of, whoever wants to come in, why don't you? And we'll say hi and have a conversation. And different kinds of beings, entities, whoever, characters show up that way, right? So when Jung did this, he quickly learned that the figures, he called them the little people, the figures who showed up in his active imaginations had a lot to say to him about him. And it wasn't always stuff he wanted to hear. And they would do things like make predictions, and then the things that they predicted would happen. So Jung says in his Memories, Dreams, Reflections, his autobiographical writings, that this was his first set of lessons into the fact that the unconscious, which is the grab bag he puts all this into, has its own autonomy, its own viewpoint. And each one of these characters has their own viewpoint as well. So at first it makes people uncomfortable to realize that there's more than you running around in there, but you get used to it pretty quickly. And these different viewpoints create a kind of internal diversity of voices that can help you navigate through the world. And I gave an example in the last video. So as authors, we can do that with our characters as well. So I began doing this with Lucas. And last thing I'll say here, and I'm going to keep these short. He wanted me to write a novel about him, and I didn't want to. I said, I'm really busy. I don't really want to write a novel. I like short stories. And he said, no, it's got to be a novel. And so I started writing a short story about him, and he would kind of whisper in my ear, oh, there's this other thing I've been up to, and there's this other piece of my life. It was a novel. So More about that in the next video.